All right, it's the NFL Week 5 spread picks. Last week we went 3-1. The Browns played us. We should have went 4-0, but it's all good. We're 11-6 for the season, good for 65%. And I tell people we take favorites, we take dogs, pick'ems, totals. We'll take a sharp side, we'll take a Joe side. It's really not about none of that with me. It's just about having a full analysis and um, just making the right read. We really don't care about none of that other stuff. We just want to win. So let's get into it. Week 5, first game, Thursday night football. We got the Indianapolis Colts at the Denver Broncos. The Colts are plus 3.5. I wouldn't touch this game if my life depended on it. It's a primetime game. It's two teams that I'm really not too fond of at this point in the season. Matt Ryan doesn't really have much juice left in that arm. If I had to touch this game, if I really had to, I guess the lean would be Denver because I think Denver's going to win. Denver's shown us that on prime time they can beat a good team in the San Francisco 49ers. The Colts haven't really done anything on the road. They haven't done anything at all, actually. They didn't cover at the Texans. That was a tie when they were -8. They didn't cover when they went to Jacksonville as a favorite. So this Colts team hasn't shown us too much on the road. They haven't shown us anything competent. And I would just take Denver in this spot if I had to, but not touching this game at all. I would advise you guys to stay away from this game. Next up, we got the New York Giants at the Green Bay Packers. This game is in London. The Giants are laying 8 points, and I won't touch this game just because it's in London. I'm not too crazy about the line either way, but definitely because it's in London, I wouldn't touch this game. I said last week that the Packers usually cover these big spreads. Of course, Belichick had different plans. Not too surprised because it's Belichick, the greatest football coach in my lifetime. But the Giants are a different team. The Giants are younger. The Giants are, they have less experience. They're more inexperienced. And no one really expected them to be 3-1. We took the Giants in week 1, and I said take the Giants in week 2, but no one really saw the Giants being 3-1 at this point in time. So I think they're running a little hot, and I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay took care of business, covered the spread. But Green Bay's shown that they play with their food a little bit too, and they don't really have a lot of explosive plays. They kind of beat you over the course of a game. So the lean would have to be Green Bay, but really tough spot. I wouldn't touch this game at all either. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks at the New Orleans Saints. The Seahawks are plus 5.5. The Saints got to be due at some point, right? The Saints have to cover a game at some point. This is another tough spot. 3 nasty games to start off the slate. But the Saints have to cover a game at some point. Andy Dalton wasn't too bad last week against the Vikings. They're starting to catch a groove running the football. We know the Saints are going to play real good defense. This isn't going to be a game like Seattle had last week where they put up 48 points. This is the kind of spot where Seattle puts up 40 something and then the next week they put up like 12 or like the next week they put up 13 or something. This is one of those type of spots. So I could see Seattle cooling off a little bit. I could see the Saints defense really locking them up. These teams played each other last year and it was Geno Smith at quarterback and the Saints beat them. I think that game was actually in Seattle on Monday Night Football. So lean Saints here. At some point they got to get a cover, but this is a tough one. Next up, we got the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Texans are plus 7. I don't go against the Texans when they're getting this many points. The Jaguars are probably going to win this game, but at plus 7 in a division spot, I would lean taking the Texans when they're getting this many points. The Texans at home getting points are what I feel more comfortable with, but even Texans on the road division spot, they're familiar with this team getting 7 points. I would have to take this Houston team because they are scrappy, but I wouldn't touch this game either. All right, we finally got some games that I feel comfortable giving you guys some sides on. I promise I wasn't just going to say I'm not taking this the whole way through. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Buffalo Bills. The Steelers are laying 14, and I actually want to look at the total in this spot. The Bills Steelers over 46.5. Right now it's at 46.5. And I would take the over in this spot. I know when you look at that number initially, you think under. But when you get this Steelers team with Kenny Pickett, we saw in that second half, he's going to throw a lot of jump balls. He's going to be a lot more aggressive than Mitch Trubisky. And so when you have Kenny Pickett in there, it's going to be touchdowns or it's going to be interceptions. And the Buffalo Bills, when they're at home, they pick up the pace. They play a lot faster. and they're trying to win the coin toss, and they want to receive the ball first, and they want to go score a touchdown to start the game and just set the tempo up like that. They want to make a statement early on, let you know you're in Buffalo and you're down 7-0. So that's what the Bills do when they're at home. Kenny Pickett's going to be a lot more aggressive than Mitch Trubisky. This total actually was 47 last year. It opened up at 47 when these teams played each other in week 1. Of course, that was with Big Ben, who didn't have no juice left in his arm, and that total went under. The Steelers' defense was fully healthy. T.J. Watt was in that game. He's not going to be in this game. And that Steelers' defense was able to just put on a masterclass, and the special teams put on a masterclass against the Buffalo Bills. But now you're getting the Steelers team in a different scenario where the defense isn't as strong and Buffalo's locked in. They're ready to go. It's not the first game of the season anymore. It's midway through, and they're coming off of a couple road games ready to get right at home. They're going to play with some pace. The Steelers are going to be aggressive. The Steelers wide receivers just want Kenny to throw the ball up there. And there's just going to be a lot of plays made. I don't know who covers this game. It really depends on how Kenny Pickett plays, if he has poise or not. But I do know he's going to be a lot more aggressive than Mitch, and that's going to lead to points. Points for the Bills or points to the Steelers. I could see this being a 38-10 smackdown spot for the Bills. I could also see this being like 28-24 where, the Bills barely scrap out a win and Kenny Pickett just plays amazing. So I could see it going either way, but I expect a lot of points in this spot. So I'm not going official with it yet. I have not placed that yet, the over. But we're really honing in on the over right now. Nothing official, but we're really looking at that spot right now. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons are plus 8.5. There's another spot right here I haven't gone official yet with, but it's a money pick. It's a play that we're going to be honing in on as the week goes on. And it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers covering, but in the first half. The Atlanta Falcons in the 2 road games this year at the Rams, they got the backdoor cover later on, but they were getting smashed in the mouth in the first half. And in the first half against the Seahawks, they ended up winning that game as a favorite on the road. But as a favorite against the Seahawks, they did not cover in the first half. They were down at halftime, even against Seattle. So this Falcons team, when they're on the road, they come out a little slow. This is a Tampa Bay team that hasn't had a great game yet this season. They're going to be looking to get right against an inferior opponent. We know Brady owns the Falcons. He's 10-0 all time against the Falcons. We know the Bucs, since Brady has been there, have been beating up on the Falcons. And we know that Tampa Bay is known for having a really good run defense, and they were getting pounded against the Chiefs on primetime. So coming back from a primetime loss, they're going to want to get right. They're going to want to redeem themselves. And this defense is going to want to show why it's the best at stopping the run, which is what the Falcons do well. I expect Tampa Bay to make it difficult for the Falcons to run the football. I expect Tampa Bay to force Mariota to make throws and do things he's not comfortable doing. And the Falcons don't have a good defense. They can't stop nobody. I'm expecting Brady and these wide receivers, now that they're finally healthy, to get going on offense and to very early on to make some big-time plays. I wouldn't be surprised if at halftime this is like 21-7, 21-3. I could see 14-3. I mean, even if it's 14-7, even if the Falcons were able to sneak by and get a touchdown or if something goes wrong, the first half spread is 5.5. So I feel very comfortable with that. Tampa Bay minus 5.5 in the first half. And when you see, just a side note, when you see minus 5.5 in the first half, but you see minus 8.5 for the game, I'm not no mathematician, guys. You guys can see that 5.5, you would expect the total spread to be like 10 or 11. But at 8.5, they're telling you that Tampa Bay is going to get on them early. It's just a matter of how much Tampa Bay gets on them early. But Vegas is telling you Tampa's going to have the lead at halftime. So I feel comfortable saying they're going to have at least a touchdown lead. And we're really looking into Tampa Bay minus 5.5 in the first half, guys. You got to check out the video on Friday. Either Friday night or Saturday morning, I'll have the video up with all the official picks that we're locking in for the weekend. So just be sure to check that video out. This play will most likely be on there. Next game, we got the Tennessee Titans at the Washington Commanders. The Titans are minus 2.5 on the road, and it's Washington or nothing for me. Washington or nothing. There's not too much to say about this game. Washington really didn't play that bad last week. They just had too many penalties. but it didn't look as bad as the score actually was. And the Titans, they're coming off a big win against the Colts. Are the Titans really a consistent team that's just going to be covering and winning games on the road back to back? Are the Titans really back? Are they the same team as last year, or is this still a broken team? I'm still leaning towards this being a broken team. I still think this is a team that shouldn't be favored on the road. I wouldn't want to take either of these teams if they were favored on the road. It's just a natural fade spot for me. And it's Washington or nothing. And I know they covered week one against the Jags, but since then they've been ice cold. They're due to get a cover at some point. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears at the Minnesota Vikings. The Bears are +7. The Bears have been really bad on the road. The Bears have shown that they can't really cover games when they're on the road. At home, especially when they're getting points, they'll do their thing at home. But on the road, they haven't really done too much. So I like the Vikings in this spot. I think Kirk Cousins feels comfortable in these kind of spots. When the Vikings have been favored against their division this year, they did smash the Packers. Of course, they were dogs the whole summer, but right before the game started, they became favorites when the Packers' old lineman went out. But the Vikings, they got to the Packers in week one, and they should have got to Detroit in that game the week before. They should have got to that game against Detroit. They should have got there, but they won by 4. It was -6. They just came out sluggish in the first half. Even if the Vikings come out sluggish in the first half against the Bears, I think they're still going to cover this spread. I think they can come out sluggish. They can play subpar, and they can still win this game by at least a touchdown. So I like the Vikings in this spot. This is a play we may look on later in the week. We may look at this play later in the week, but as of right now, Vikings -7 is the lean. Next game, we got the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. The Dolphins are -3.5. I don't got a lot for this game. I guess the lean would be the Miami Dolphins -3.5. I just think they're the better team, better roster. The Jets are coming off a win. It was an emotional win with Zach Wilson coming back. Is that really who the Jets are? Are they really about to start stringing together wins? Or are the Jets just going to fall back and be who the Jets are? We know Teddy Bridgewater is in for the Miami Dolphins. How much worse is Bridgewater than Tua? I don't think it's a big gap. I think they play very similar styles, actually. And I think Tua has a little bit more zip on his ball, a little bit more juice on his ball. And I think Tua can throw that ball a little deeper than Teddy Bridgewater can. But neither of them are really making dynamic plays like that. Overall, I would say Tua is better, though. So Teddy Bridgewater, I think McDaniels is going to be able to compensate for what he can't do by running the football more. We saw them run the football more against the Bengals in that second half when Teddy was in there. And I expect more of the same. And they have good running backs. They have Mozart. He's very fast. I think Miami should be able to get there. Next up, we got the Chargers, Los Angeles Chargers at the Cleveland Browns. The Chargers are -2.5. On a short favorite, they don't really have to get there by that much. They could just win by a field goal. I guess I would take the Chargers in this spot. It's tough for me, though. The Browns have shown that they can cover at home. They covered as a big favorite against the Steelers. It was like -4.5, -5.5 at one point, and they got there against the Steelers. Now, the Chargers are a different animal. The Chargers also, when they went on the road, they just covered against the Texans, and they also covered at Kansas City. And there was a chance for them to win that game at one point. So the Chargers have done well. And for all intents and purposes, the Chargers covered in week one against the Raiders. I know that game was in LA, but it's all Raiders fans in LA. So the Chargers have done well in hostile environments. The Chargers have the better quarterback. And the Chargers beat them last year, so maybe this is just a spot where the Chargers own this team. Lean Chargers -2.5. Really tough game, though. I don't have nothing for this game. This is definitely not a game that I'm going to be touching. If you like Cleveland in this spot, I'm not mad at it. Next game, we got the Detroit Lions at the New England Patriots. The Lions are +3. We're taking the Patriots. We're going to be taking the Patriots in this game. I'm telling you guys that right now. I haven't done it yet. It's not official yet, but we're going to be taking the Patriots. I'm just waiting to see if we can maybe get 2.5. If we could get 2.5, it opened up at -1. It was at 2.5 for the longest before it got up to 3. I just think the public is going to be hammering the Lions, and we might be able to get 2.5. That way, if the Patriots win by a field goal, we'll be okay. But the Patriots are going to come out here, and they're going to run the football on the Lions. The Lions can't stop a nosebleed. They're last in the league. They're giving up about 6 yards per carry. That's last in the league. We know Belichick's going to run the football, especially if Mac Jones isn't there. But even if Mac Jones is there, even if he's available, no matter who's at quarterback, the Patriots are going to run it down on the Lions, and the Patriots are also going to get stops. This is going to be the first game where the Lions kind of struggle to score. We saw what Bill Belichick did against Jared Goff in the Super Bowl. He's going to make it really uncomfortable for Jared Goff. And at the end of the day, it's Dan Campbell, who I love as a motivational coach, a guy who gets his guys rallied up. But it's Dan Campbell versus Bill Belichick. And Dan Campbell's not an X's and O's guy, and I think Bill Belichick's going to run circles around him. We saw what Belichick did against the Packers last week. We saw Belichick competing against the Baltimore Ravens, and we saw Belichick go into Pittsburgh and win that game. So I think the media really tries to frame it like Brady's just this amazing guy and Belichick is in over his head, and they got Matt Patricia calling plays and what's going on in New England. But really, New England is a competent football team, and if you look at their schedule the next few weeks, there's a chance that this team could get a little hot. So I like the New England Patriots in this spot. Minus the 3 is the lean. Let's see if we can get minus 2.5, but we will be taking the Patriots this week. Next game, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the Carolina Panthers. The Niners on the road are minus 6.5. This is really nasty for me. Nasty game. To be honest, the lean would have to be Carolina just because this is the kind of spot that Shanahan usually blows. Shanahan will beat those big-time teams and he'll win a game on primetime or win a game just against like a really great opponent, but then he'll blow a game like this. Like this is the type of game that the San Francisco 49ers could easily lose. When you look at the total, it's under 40. Vegas is telling you this is going to be a real low-scoring game with two quarterbacks who aren't like just like super amazing playmakers. It's Baker Mayfield and Jimmy G. So getting 6.5 on the road against a real good defense in a game that's supposed to be real low scoring, like for the Niners to cover, what are we saying? We're saying 21-14? Is that what we're saying if the Niners cover this spread? If the Niners cover this spread, are we saying 17-7? Like, you're just playing with a real tight window in this spot, and the Niners can do it. They're the way better football team. It's Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield might be the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what's wrong with him. He looks horrible, though. But I don't know. But the San Francisco 49ers minus 6.5 on the road, it's just not the best bet. It's just not the best bet. But I would, if I had to, if I had to, I'd take Carolina in this spot, but not touching this game. Next game, we got the Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Rams. The Cowboys are plus 5.5. It sounds crazy to say, but I'm not getting in front of this Dallas Cowboys team right now. With Cooper Rush, I'm not getting in front of this team right now. Their confidence is at an all-time high. They're playing real good football on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, they're being smart. They're finding a way to move the ball up the field. They're not turning it over. And they have the type of defense where you can play that type of conservative offense and be fine. They're running the football. Pollard's doing okay. Zeke is doing okay. They're finding a way to compensate for that O-line not being as good as it used to be in years past. So it's hard for me. The Cowboys getting 5.5 points. It's hard for me to take the Rams in this spot. The Rams as big favorites, and they haven't looked that well this season. They don't really have that many options on the offensive side other than Cooper Kupp. It feels like Stafford's just forcing it to Kupp right now. Allen Robinson is just like, he's just not there. He's invisible. He's not making plays. He's just a non-factor. So in this situation, it would be Cowboys or nothing for me because I'm not getting in front of Cooper Rush. But he's due to lose. He really is. He's due to lose. He's due to not cover a game. The Cowboys are due to get smacked up, but I'm not getting in front of that. I'm just not. In a long term, when you're betting, when you're trying to bet sports, and you have to look at the law of averages and look at it from a long-term perspective, this is the type of game long-term where you want to be on the Rams. But just in this spot in particular, I don't feel right pulling the trigger. I just don't. So for me, it's Cowboys or nothing. Next game, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Arizona Cardinals. The Eagles are minus 5. I don't got much for this game. The lean would be Eagles minus the 5. The Eagles look like a great organization. The Cardinals look incompetent. The Cardinals are not usually good at home with Kyler Murray and Kingsbury. They haven't been a great home favorite. And coming off of a road win, we saw them come off a road win against the Raiders and then just lay down against the Rams. Now they're coming off a road win against Carolina, and they might just lay down against the Eagles, who are just the far better team. So this does kind of smell like a trap spot for the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Arizona Cardinals, they just don't show us anything to make us want to buy in on them at this point. So Eagles are nothing. All right, guys, last two games. We got action on both these games, the primetime games, Sunday night football and Monday night football. I know I told you guys there's some games early on that I wouldn't touch. I know I give out a couple of leans, a couple plays that will eventually go official on. But, for those of you who stayed till the end of the video, I got two official plays to round it out. We got Sunday night football, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are -3.5. The Ravens are covering this game. The Ravens are covering this game. The Ravens have been really good this season, and people have been blinded by their record. They've been blinded by Miami Dolphins' just extreme, amazing comeback, and they've been blinded by the Bills' comeback where the Ravens maybe made a decision at the end of the game that they shouldn't have made. It wasn't the greatest decision, but Harbaugh and the Ravens, they have that identity. They want to go for it on fourth down, and it just burned them. It just burned them in that spot. But this is a team that's really good. The Ravens have a better roster than the Bengals. The Ravens before the season were expected to win the division. There's nothing I've seen out of the Bengals that says that they're a better football team than the Ravens. I've seen the Ravens have way more highs than the Bengals have had this season. The Ravens have had some lows where they let teams come back, but their highs have been way better than the Bengals. And at home, we know that the Ravens at some point are going to dominate. They dominated that game. At some point, they were dominating. For most of the game, they were dominating the Dolphins, and for most of the game, they were dominating the Bills. And we know when the Ravens are at home, they're going to dominate. So I don't expect that the Bengals are going to come back. I just don't see the Ravens blowing 3 straight home games. I just don't see them blowing 3 straight home games. I think the Ravens are going to come out here. They're going to play desperate. They're going to play motivated. They know they need to win this game. They know they need to be locked in and make the smartest decisions. And I just think they have the better overall roster. The Bengals have not looked good this season. We did buy the Bengals last week against the Dolphins, but that was more a fade against the Dolphins and the Bengals just being in a really good situation at home. Now we're getting the Bengals on the road. I'm not really a fan of that. Getting the Bengals on the road, they couldn't even cover against the Cowboys when they were on the road. So, and their other cover was against the Jets, so I'm not making much out of that. The Ravens smashed the Jets also. So, give me the Ravens -3.5 at home, the first official play of this week. And the second official play of this week is really the first official play if you follow me on social media because I put it out right away. The Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. We bought in on the Raiders at +7.5. Now you guys can see it's at +7. I still like it at +7, but +7.5 is just a totally different ball game because with that hook and this dynamic Raiders offense, they could backdoor this game if Kansas City just goes wild. But when you really look into this matchup, the Raiders last year, they struggled against the Chiefs because the Raiders just had so much turmoil going on during the time of these matchups. Of course, the Henry Ruggs situation, the John Gruden situation. But when you look at these two teams playing each other the year before, both games were shootouts, and the Raiders actually won at Kansas City. And then when it was at Vegas in primetime, the Raiders covered that game on a line that was similar to this. So I like the Raiders in this spot. +7, they're getting a whole lot of points. Now that the Raiders have had that run-pass balance, the Raiders covered for us last week against Denver because they had that run-pass balance. And that run-pass balance is crucial because that O-line is getting a great push. That Raiders O-line isn't amazing at pass blocking, but run blocking, they get a great push for Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is doing an incredible job in between the tackles, those inside runs, those HB dives. He's doing amazing at. He's always been good at that, and it's really opening things up for Carr and Devontae Adams and Darren Waller. They should be getting Hunter Renfrow back. This team has a lot of weapons. We see that it's a high total. They just have a lot of weapons, and they're familiar with the Chiefs. They've beaten the Chiefs before in Arrowhead. They're going to be comfortable, and they're going to be desperate because they need this game really bad. They need this game really bad because they're still 1-3. Even though they won, they're just coming off of a win. They're still going to be playing like a team that hasn't won a game yet this season. They're still desperate. This is still a buy spot on the Raiders, and it's also a fade spot on Kansas City because Kansas City, they just beat the Bucs. They just beat the Bucs. We saw Kansas City on primetime beat the Chargers, and then we saw them come out flat and lose at Colts. Now we see them beat the Bucs on primetime. They're going to come out flat against the Raiders. And you know why? Not only because they just beat the Bucs, but they're playing the Buffalo Bills next week. It's a sandwich spot. You're worried about the Chargers. You're worried about the Bucs. You're worried about the Bills. and you just let the Raiders and the Colts game slip away. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders won this game outright. I'm really not mad at anybody who sprinkles the money line. Plus 244 is probably one of the better money line bets you're going to get all season. But Raiders plus 7.5, second official play of the week. Lock that in. So once again, just to be clear, we got the Raiders plus 7.5. I'm not mad at anybody who takes the 7. I still like it. We got the Ravens minus 3.5. Get that quick because there's a chance that it could bump up. And we're looking at the Bucks first half minus 5.5. We're looking at the Patriots minus 3. We're looking at the Vikings minus 7. And we're looking at the Steelers over 46.5. Those are all plays we're looking at. But officially right now, we got the Raiders and we got the Ravens. So lock those in, guys. Make sure to check out the video on Friday. Friday or Saturday, that video will be up. Get those locks in. We're going to win again. We've had a great start to the season, and we're only going to continue to get better and better as we have more information. So thanks for watching. Till next time, peace.